Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of the TopCyberPro podcast. I'm your host and CEO and founder of TopCyberPro.com, Jim West, and I'm here with not only the creator of Zero Trust, but he's also a chief evangelist at Illumio, John Kindervag. And I hope I got that last name right.
You did, Jim. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, John, tell us a little bit about, who you are and what you do. I know I kind of threw a couple titles out there, but there's a lot more to it than just a title. So, you wouldn't mind?
Well, I'm your basic cybersecurity guy, I guess. That's my everything I do. That's what I love to do. I'm best known for creating Zero Trust. So I spent 8.5 years at Forrester Research, where I was the vice president and principal analyst, and I created Zero Trust. I did a lot of other things there too. I ran data security and privacy for them, and I ran security architecture and operations. So I've had my hands in a lot of things. I left there. I was at Palo Alto Networks for 4 years. Then I went to a Dutch company that does zero trust managed services. And coming up on 2 years this September, I will have been at Illumio, where I'm the chief evangelist. And mainly that means you get on a plane all the time. So uh,
You gotta go preach the gospel and spread the word,
that's
right?
right, right,
So
right,
what
right.
so about the evangelist part, let's talk about that before we get back to zero trust, because zero trust, I know we got a lot to talk about, but being a chief evangelist, you say you gotta get on a plane a lot, you gotta travel, go spread the word. What is and what does Illumio do?
Illumio started off doing microsegmentation, which is a core technological need of zero trust environments. And then we have augmented that uh, microsegment we've augmented the microsegmentation technology with what we call Illumio Insights, which is analysis of the flow data and leveraging AI to tell you what you need to do to make everything better in your environment. And it functions together in a platform that works on premise or in the cloud or on an endpoint. So the three places where protect surfaces live.
Okay. So with that being said, you mentioned the microsegmentation. Let's go back to the creation of zero trust. And I know you spent, almost a decade, building what's become zero trust architecture. What was the driving forces that push you towards, creating zero trust?
Well, before I was at Forrester Research, I was a security architect, engineer, pen tester at a couple of resellers. And one of the things I did a lot of was install firewalls. And firewalls had a trust model where the internal network was trusted and the external network was untrusted. And policy was based upon the trust level. So if you were moving traffic from a high trust level, the internal network, to a low trust level, the external network or any of the DMZs, you didn't need to have a rule in place. There was no need for a policy statement. And I said, this is insane because if somebody gets inside your environment, they can exfil data really, really easily. And so I would try to put outbound rules in place, and I would get in trouble by vendors. I would get in trouble by clients. I would get in trouble by the companies I worked for. I eventually got fired because of it. So, which was the best thing that could have happened. And so I ended up with this real big hate for the trust model in cybersecurity. Trust is a human emotion that's been injected into digital systems for no reason. There is no such thing as trust in digital systems. Trust is a human thing, not a digital thing. And so I've spent then the last 15, 17 years trying to eliminate the concept of trust from digital systems because it's a phenomenally stupid and silly idea.
Mhm. And a lot of folks, so when they start learning about the zero trust architecture or ZTA solutions, they'll hear generally speaking about five general pillars. Could you maybe step us through, and then folks that would watch this video that maybe haven't heard too much about zero trust, kind of what those big fundamental pieces are?
Well, I don't use the pillar model.
Okay.
So the pillar model was developed by other people. I don't think it works very well. I use a five-step deployment model. So the most important thing you need to understand about zero trust is what a protect surface is. A
Okay.
protect surface is what you're going to protect, right? So this is why we're in cybersecurity. We're trying to secure something, right? We used to be information security, which we knew what we were protecting, information. That made sense. Now we're cybersecurity. What's a cyber? Why should I protect it? Makes no sense. We do things, I guess, to sound cool, like we're in some sort of, cyberpunk movie or something, but it degrades our ability to do our jobs because we market it wrongly. But what do I need to protect? That's the fundamental question. People call me up all the time. I bought Gadget X, product Y. What do I do with it? I'll say, what are you trying to protect? They say, I don't know. And so I will talk to them about a protect surface. So you create protect surfaces for what is known as DAS elements, DAAS. That stands for data that's sensitive, applications that are sensitive, assets that are sensitive, or services that are sensitive. Examples are like DNS, DHCP, Active Directory, Network Time Protocol. How many people protect their Network Time Protocol system? Taking that down will take the whole network down. And so you put a single DAS element into a single protect surface, and you build your zero trust environment out one protect surface at a time. And in this way, zero trust is three things that are really important. It's incremental. We're doing it one at a time. It's iterative. We're doing it one after another, and it's non-disruptive. The most you could screw up is one protect surface. And I've written about this in a lot of different places, most notably the president's NSTAC report. I was appointed to serve on the president's National Security Telecommunications Advisory Committee subcommittee on zero trust and trusted identity access. It's a long title, good government title. And we wrote what is the authoritative report on what zero trust is and delivered it to President Biden February 23rd, 2022. We wanted to get it there on 2/22/22, which we did, and then there was some sort of typo or some revision had to be made. We had to pull it for a day, and we missed it by one day, so it's 2/23/22, which is sort of a bummer. But once you've done that, once you've figured out what you're going to protect, then the second step is to map the transaction flows. And this five-step process that I'm outlining to you is the most important thing that you could know about zero trust. If you do it this way, you're going to be successful. If you do it ways that other people are talking about, you probably won't be successful. So how does my system work together as a system? Because the more you know about the system, the less that you will make mistakes, right? And that's why I came over to Illumio, because the mapping technologies we have are phenomenal. So I can look at a flow map and I can tell you exactly where your controls need to be. And that's the third step in architecting everything. So we've always started with the architecture. We created a reference architecture and built stuff, and then we told the business plug stuff in wherever you want. And now we don't know where anything is because we weren't designing the system to accomplish anything other than to move packets. That's why step three is architecture, not step one. And everybody wants it to be step one. And no, that's a bad idea because every zero trust environment has to be tailor-made. The architecture has to be tailor-made for the protect surface. You have to build it for the thing you're trying to protect. And then step four is creating the policy. So there's a thing called the Kipling method policy. This comes from a poem by Rudyard Kipling. He wrote it in, I think, 1902. To tell his daughter about journalism. He was a journalist. He also wrote the Jungle Book for people who, didn't study much literature back in high school and college. But he wrote a poem. I keep 600 servingmen. They taught me all I knew. Their names were what and why and when and how and where and who. And this is where we get who, what, when, where, why, and how from this poem by Rudyard Kipling. So I've taken that because every culture, every language, every country has that concept of who, what, when, where, why, and how. So we ask who should have access, right? So this is the main thing that a lot of people think zero trust is. They think it's identity. It's not. It's identity is consumed by policy in zero trust in the who statement. Who should have access via what application? When should that access be allowed? So we need to have a lot more time-limited access. Turn off a rule when most of our people aren't normally going to use it, but we turn on rules and policies all the time and keep them on all 24/7. And this allows the attackers to come in and attack us when we're asleep. Yeah. Yep. So who, what, when, where, that's the location of your protect surface. Why are you doing it? This is where I put a lot of metadata in there. Things like compliance mandates and data types and things like that so that we can read that metadata in the analytical systems that we're going to use. And then how statement is how are we going to, you know, control the packet so that it's clean, right? So there's a lot of different things that we'll do for that. And if all those things are true, you know, then we're going to allow the packet to connect. So zero trust starts with a default deny policy.
Mhm.
And this is important because all bad things happen inside of an allow rule. So if there is a negative security event in your organization, you had a policy in place that allowed it. There was a rule that allowed it to happen. And so no one in the corporate world or the government world, in the big world, not talking about home users, but the big world that have lots of controls and people, is a victim of cybercrime. They are at best an unwitting co-conspirator because they had bad policies. So most people just try to play whack-a-mole. They allow everything and then try to stop the bad things. Well, that's too late. And so we allow only the good things that are known good. And people kind of freak out about that. Well, we got to let everybody have access because of speed. And no, you don't. That's actually not true. That is a myth, and that's because, as one government official said, people are lazy, so they don't want to make the effort to figure out who actually needs to have access to a particular resource in order to get their job done. And that's so that's how we do those policies. And then the fifth step is monitor and maintain, where we take all the telemetry generated by the system and put it into an analytical engine so that we can re-inject it back into the zero trust environment and make it stronger and stronger over time. This is a concept known as anti-fragility. So Nissim Nicholas Taleb, who wrote The Black Swan, he's most famous for that book. And I know we're going to talk about books. So anything Taleb wrote, people should write. Black Swan, but my favorite is still Anti-Fragile. But Skin in the Game is a great one as well. So he's the one who gave me the vocabulary to talk about what we're doing. So he talks about anti-fragility as a system. It is beyond resilience, right? It gets stronger and stronger under stress. So a great example is the human body. You know, it's the holiday season. You have Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's all in a row. What do? We all overeat, don't we?
Mhm.
And we all gain a few extra pounds. So we got to lose some weight. You know, that's our New Year's resolution, is to lose some weight, get in shape. And what do? You stress your body out by restricting calories. That's a stressor. By exercising, that's a stressor. But your body doesn't collapse upon itself. It gets stronger and stronger. It adapts to the stress and gets better and stronger. And so zero trust does that. A zero trust environment is an anti-fragile system that all of those learnings, that the stress, the more attacks that it sees, we can make it stronger and stronger and stronger. And everybody else is talking about resilience. I'm beyond resilience. I'm into anti-fragility because that's the future.
And I 100% agree. I used to be a program manager for several years for commercial solutions for classified. And I know a lot of folks, when they start learning a little bit about zero trust architecture, they'll be like, hey, this kind of reads a little bit like one and the other. But there are some very distinct, there's some distinctions between the two because your approach is going to be a little bit more all encompassing, whereas CSFC, commercial solutions for classified, is really just the concept of the layering of two independent layers of encryption to and certificate use of certificates to provide that access, which conceptually it can be similar to ZTA in regards to like access control in particular, you know, using leveraging a certificate authority, you know, as you should in most environments to handle a lot of access. But your approach, again, I just want to make some kudos to it. There's a lot of old school security stuff baked in, right? The whole idea of you got to know what you have before you can know how to protect it, right? That what statement of yours. That is just from the beginning of information security itself, is you got to know what you have, having your assets, your inventory, if you will. But if you don't know what you have and what the true value of that is, whether quantitative or qualitative, you can't even begin to know how and what's required to protect it, right? So I love that that's baked in right off the first question. And another concept,
Uh,
go ahead.
no, I mean, let's pull that thread because I also covered encryption and all these things at Forrester. So I've always been a big advocate of this. But what you're talking about is technology or tools that we use within the strategy. So zero trust is the strategy. It will use a lot of these tools. I mean, I once got the opportunity to have lunch with Whit Diffie and talk to him about all this stuff, right? And wrote a lot about encryption at Forrester and what I call killing your data, right?
Mhm.
So the only good data is dead data. And so we need to leverage this more. But to your point, we need to know what we need to protect. We need to know what we have, but most people don't. Even people who are doing these kinds of projects within the federal government and theoretically defining their HVAs and all, which is high value assets and all that kind of stuff. They typically don't know, and in general, a lot of people just don't care. And so I think it's a problem of not caring and really not having the right incentives in place.
And I think there's the other end of that spectrum. The not caring or getting complacent is real easy for the majority of folks. But then when you have the people that appear to care or want to care, they go to the extreme where everything's at a higher level when it really isn't that valuable when you really look at the operations and so forth. But another
On
thing,
that and that's a good thread to pull here, right, Jim? Because you're coming from a government perspective where they tend to overclassify their data, and the real reason doing research on this is because in the government, information is power. So I
Mhm.
want to control what access you have because I control your access to power. In the private sector, they tend to underclassify their data because they care about speed more
Yeah.
and they want more people to use it and they don't want to have any disruptions of usage. So, so they'll tend to underclassify things so that they don't have to do things like encrypt it or
Mhm.
even control access to it. So we've seen big data breaches that have happened where the party line will be, hey, it was a misconfiguration of an of a you know a place inside of a cloud, right? And it was a misconfiguration of the cloud. And then when you read the lawsuits and the documents from that are filed in there, you find out no, somebody said stop doing access control
Access.
because
Mhm.
it's slowing things down, and all we care about is speed, speed, speed. DevOps, how fast can we go, right? And so I always say DevOps are the Ricky Bobbies of
I like
IT,
that.
right? You know, they just want to go fast, man. I got a cougar sitting next to me. I just want to go fast.
Want to go fast. You mentioned access control and access management. I think that that's a very under focused element of cybersecurity of any program or framework out there, even though we have all these different controls that are focused on addressing it. But there's basic simple things like you mentioned time, right? Time of day where people are supposed to be at work, and I know we have this whole culture now with since COVID, a lot more virtual distance or remote workers and at different time zones. But at the same time, you can still put that window based upon what region or what time zone they're in. But I 100% agree that we should restrict the time of work. We should restrict, locations as well, because again, the more you put those restrictions on, the more likely that account could be compromised outside of the normal hours or normal GeoIP restrictions and so forth. But getting back to things like access creep, when we think about how people get too much access, questioning the why do they still need the access. So let's say someone's assigned to a project and that project's going to have an end date. You should definitely put that account to expire or at least the access for whatever groups they're in or data they have access to. It should be limited because every project has an end date. Now, if the project gets extended, then it's then the account access based upon the need to know and the need to still maintain access. But I think a lot of folks, because they want the easy button, they want to be able to say, okay, just give them 1 year. New accounts get 1 year. We're going to set it a year from today. This practice of just this whole blanket 1 year or sometimes indefinite is not the right answer when you have the capability in Windows and any other directory type system to set an expiration date and to require that user to have to reset a password as well as someone in authority to reauthorize the access. At least take a look at it. But people, we are complacent. We are lazy. We want the shortcut. You can have that sidewalk that makes the 90-degree turn, but people will cut that for that 1.8 second of time they're going to save for cutting through the grass. That's how we are as human beings. So, from all your experiences with working with organizations, businesses, or consulting, advising regarding zero trust solutions, what are some of the pitfalls you see people usually the roads they go down that they shouldn't be going down is a better way I can put it.
The biggest thing is they try to do it all at once for their whole organization, and they think that it all has to be done all at the same time instead of in bite-sized chunks. And I say it's a little bit like remodeling a house. I just moved into a new house. Well, I don't have 600 friends who can come over a weekend and do a TV show where they remodel my house, in a weekend. Um, I have to do it one room at a time. So that's how you remodel a house. That's how you build a zero trust environment, one step at a time. And any journey is one step at a time. So that's the number one thing. Number two problem is people think it's a product. It's not. It's a journey and it's a strategy. And so it uses products, it uses technologies, but it's not a product. And then third, people think it's a project. When am I going to be done with zero trust? I hear that a lot. And I'll say, they said, we've been doing this a long time. When are we going to be done? I said, well, man, you've been breathing for a long time. When are you going to be done with breathing?
Breathe.
Right? When are you
Yeah.
going to be, your heart's beating quite, it's, hasn't it beaten enough? Haven't you pumped enough blood through your body? When are you going to be done having your heart beat? And the answer for all three of those questions are when you're dead, right?
Mhm.
I mean, that's the answer. Like when your company dies, when you die. And so, stopping zero trust would be the equivalent of stopping breathing.
Yeah. And what people should understand is as you do like tech refreshes or expand your environment, your networks and et cetera, and make interconnections, those things have to, again, you have to look at that the surface, that attack surface, has it been changed through an
Oh,
expansion or
that protect surface, because we're
protect
trying
surface?
to invert, right? I'm inverting the concept of attack surface because people are
Thank
talking
you.
about managing the attack surface.
Yeah.
And you can't, because the attack surface is like the universe. The
Mhm.
universe is constantly expanding. The attack surface is constantly expanding. You can never manage that, but you can, it's unmanageable, right? And so I have to do something that I can do that's doable. And so
Mhm.
by inverting it, and shrinking it down orders of magnitude to something very small and easily known called a protect surface, now I can manage a single protect surface, a DNS system,
Mhm.
a credit card database, those kinds of things. I can manage a credit card database. I can't manage everybody in the entire world who's going to try to attack my credit
Mhm.
card system.
Yes. So another question I have regarding zero trust architecture and its strategy and approaches is that a lot of folks will talk about like SANS is proponent of five defense in depth frameworks, and I know CSFC, depending on how you what capability packages or packages that you're trying to deploy, you'll leverage a lot of those five defense in depth frameworks. And I know in ZTA, all of that's incorporated again, depending on how the system is tailored. Some frameworks may be more heavily utilized than others. What would be your perspective as far as if there were weaknesses per se, other than the human element? What would you say would be the first point of weakness in a ZTA in a common ZTA solution?
That's kind of unknowable. And I'm not a big fan of defense in depth the way it's articulated now. I mean, my friend Rick Holland, who was worked with me at Forrester, he's now over uh, at another big company, but he coined the term expense in depth. It's not defense in depth, it's expense in depth. We spend money
Like
we
that.
don't have on things we don't need because we don't know what we're supposed to protect in the first place. So we can get much more precise, because if we understand what we're protecting, then we know that is the control I need for that. And I don't need 10 layered controls to protect that, right?
Hmm.
And so you're going to define it based upon what you're protecting. And so it's not really defense in depth, which is just scatter shooting stuff and hoping that I hit something, right? I mean, no, it's like duck hunting with a blindfold on. You hope that, the bird shot disperses enough that you hit something. So you just, you want to be much more targeted in the way that you approach the technology. And defense in depth, I think, is a really old technology or technological idea. I never liked it when I was doing it, when I was forced to do it. I realized it was created by vendors, not by people who understood cybersecurity, for the purpose of selling you something you already had. right? You have one firewall. Well, you need a firewall sandwich because what if one of them goes down? Well,
Yeah.
if one of them goes down, the packets aren't going to route anyway. If you understood routing, which most people didn't and still don't, you would understand that if one firewall goes down, they all, the packet isn't going to move. And secondly, you have to decrement your policy to get two systems to move a packet together because they don't have the same policy construct. So it never made sense, but people bought into it because the vendors pushed it. And I know I have one client that has 11 hops to the internet,
Mm.
11 hops, right? 11 different controls. I mean, not just
Hmm.
hops in terms of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the way the packet routes, but in terms of the controls that they control. It moves through 11 different controls because they are so into this defense in depth idea that it's pretty much unusable, right?
Yeah.
Their environment.
We become our own bottlenecks from security controls, so I can see that easily. One of the things that a lot of folks that might be watching now, if they wanted to learn more about zero ZTA and zero trust, what would be some websites or resources that you would say, or a YouTube channel, or even your site, any sites you have or papers you've written? Could you name some resources that someone saying, "Hey, I really want to learn more about this. This has got my interest." Where would you direct folks to?
Well, there's two primary things that I send people to. One is the Illumio Zero Trust Hub. So a lot of the things that I've written are over there. A lot of the things that videos that I make and things like that are there. So that's a good aggregate solution. And then the Cloud Security Alliance, we have a Zero Trust working group and a Zero Trust initiative. And that is the one that is taking zero trust to the rest of the world because a lot of the stuff people read come from uh, the U.S. federal government,
Hmm.
which has some good content, but it doesn't apply to a lot of things outside of the U.S. federal government. So if you understand how the laws are written and how everything works, you go, oh, that doesn't apply to country X, country Y, and you probably shouldn't be doing it the way it's being done in the U.S. federal government because that guidance are designed specifically for U.S. either federal civilian agencies or in the DoD for the Department of Defense, and the chances are, if you're a company in the private sector or you're another country, um, those things don't apply to you. The things that they're designed for. So I think the two resources, the Illumio resource and the Cloud Security resource, are the best places to get started.
And if you'll give me those links, I'll put them in the description below to save you, the viewer, that Google search. I'm glad you mentioned CSA Alliance. I've actually interviewed those gentlemen along with Dr. Spina from MITRE talking about some cloud security controls as well as their certification. So I actually have their CCSK and I recently have their CCZT as well. So it was pretty good information, a lot of good things to read through and so forth. So highly recommend that one for anyone that's really wanting to take the next step into the pool, deeper into the pool. Um,
Yeah, no, CCZT, I helped create that, and that's the only certification that I actually still have active, and I'm CCZT number one. So
wow.
I got the first one because
Well,
I
I'm honored to
helped
follow in
create
your
it.
footsteps with that cert. It's
There you
a
go.
pretty good cert, a lot of great information. So, folks, if you're interested in zero trust, Cloud Security Alliance has got their CCZT is a excellent education and certification to pursue. John, is there any other topics you want to talk about in IT cyber before I segue into some other questions?
I'll talk about this stuff all day long. So it's really up to you what you want to talk about. I just think that, what people need to understand. I tell people we're all cyber warriors, right? There's three adversarial businesses in the world. There's the military, there's law enforcement, and there's cybersecurity. So if you're in cybersecurity, you're fighting the good fight. I mean, that a friend of mine who's a general put his arm around me one time and he said, John, I already fought my wars. You go out and fight yours, and we're fighting a war. And it's an unfair war. In corporations, we're fighting against nation state actors. They would never attack us kinetically. If they shot a missile at our corporate headquarters, they get in big trouble. But when they shoot cyber missiles at cyber attacks, they can kind of get away with that.
Mhm.
So you're if you're in this business, you're doing something that is good for the world, and you need to understand that. So that just is my encouragement for everybody who gets a little bit discouraged. This can be a discouraging business, especially because a lot of people say no to you because they see you as the Department of No, right? Your security is the Department of No. Well, we're trying to control your enthusiasm, uh, because you're going to get yourself in trouble, and a lot of people get themselves in trouble unwittingly, and you need some guide rails, you know.
That you mentioned people getting themselves in trouble, it just reminds me of the other side of that spectrum in government where people overclassify because of fear of not classifying it appropriately. So they just by default overclassify. We end up with a lot more classified information than we should have. But sorry to have to go backtrack to that thought. I actually want to start. This is one of my favorite questions to ask all of my guests because to me, sometimes we get some great stories, unique stories, or sometimes just kind of run of the mill stories. But I would love to hear the story of your day one. If we go back in time to the first day you made the decision that, hey, I want to go into this IT cyber infosec field all in. What is there a story there that you could share with us of what that day one was?
Well, there wasn't a day one per se. um, I started out as a broadcast engineer. For example, I was the broadcast engineer for Ross Perot's 1996 presidential campaign. So I've spent 2.5 years working with him. And if you remember the chart talks where he has a
Yes.
chart,
I
I
love
was,
Ross's
I,
chart talks. Yeah.
yeah, I was behind the scenes on all of those.
Are
I
you from
was,
Texas, by the way? I hate to ask that.
yeah, yeah, I live in the Dallas area. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
You don't
Houston.
hate to, don't, oh, there you go. I mean, we have our own gang sign.
Yeah.
Our state has our own gang sign. No, and I got to cover the Oklahoma City bombing for Reuters. I was the engineer, one of the engineers there, and the only one up and running 24 hours a day. So I saw a lot of stuff, a lot of dark stuff there. But the television world, the broadcasting world, the engineering world, it has the same concepts: routing, switching, flow, path. All that stuff is exactly the same, and it started to become more and more digitized and had IT controls. And I met somebody who said, you know, you could go into IT. And I said, well, I don't know. I'm kind of happy doing this. And then he told me how much money I could make just as a basic IT guy. And I said, when can I start?
When can
Because
I start?
it paid a heck of a lot more, and still does. And then when I was doing routing and switching, basic setting up routers and switches and that kind of stuff. And somebody said, "Hey, we need somebody to do cybersecurity or information security or security, mainly network security." And nobody wanted to. They were all like going down the path of being an advanced router jockey. And I said, "Well, I'll give it a shot." I was the only one willing to do it, and that was the good move. That was the good move to say yes to that when everybody else was telling me, "No, no, you want to go get your CCIE. You want to, that's the future is in routing and switching, and now that's a commodity, right? Now it's going to be handled by AI." So
And John, I'll say
that was a good
this.
move.
That there's a lot of double, triple, quadruple CCIEs out there, but there's only one creator of zero trust. So glad that you
There you
chose the
go.
path you did.
Thank you. Thank you.
Obviously, you've had a tremendous impact with Zero Trust and other work that you've done and papers you've written, committees you've been part of. You've touched on a lot of different things and projects in your career so far, and you're still going. So I'm not trying to say,
Right.
hey, this is that Oscars honorary Oscar. No, no, no. You're still in it. You're still working. The question I had though is along this journey of your career so far, and this question is mainly is to shine a light on those mentors, leaders, maybe even rock stars in industry that you looked up to and said, "Man, I've learned so much from this person, or this person showed me the way, or helped me navigate through my career." It could be even program managers, managers, etc., or even coworkers. Is there any names that you'd like to shine a light on and pay some homage to that have helped you along your way?
Man, there's so many people. I mean, so many people. Just everybody at Forrester. When I was at Forrester, the first day of our analyst training, the person leading that training wrote our job description down, and she wrote 3 words: think big thoughts. And that was a pivotal moment because suddenly I was allowed to think outside the box, not only allowed to encouraged to think outside the box. So you learn how, we had speaker training. So I give speeches all the time. I mean, I'll be going and giving a speech tomorrow in Denver. I don't know when this airs, but tomorrow in Denver. And then next week, I'm giving speeches in London at InfoSec. I'm going to Bletchley Park to give a speech. I'm going to Rotterdam to give a speech. I've done stuff all over the world, and so really that Forrester uh, ethic there that we had really influenced me because it allowed me to think outside the box. We had a couple of sayings. People would say, um, look at that from a different angle. They'd say, widen your aperture. A lot of photography metaphors, which I understood being in the television and film business and stuff. So yeah, look at it from a different angle. Uh, Open up your aperture, meaning you're too close-minded in this. And so that was the transformative experience. And there were so many people there, a ton of people, all the people who supported me in doing zero trust when other people were saying I was completely insane to my face. The people at Forrester were saying, no, keep going, keep going. This is right on. And then just, I mean, there's literally hundreds of people who've had an influence on me, and hopefully I've had an influence on other people too. So it's hard to just say it in a few things. But I also have what I call my geek bucket list, the people that I want to meet and just have a short conversation with. So I got to meet and spend the day with um, a, the um, uh, with the guy who invented the microprocessor in 1957 at Texas Instruments, Jack Kilby. And he won the Nobel Prize. I got a call. I was operating Texas Instruments television at the time. Open up the studio. Kilby won the Nobel Prize for physics. And so I got to spend the day with Jack Kilby. And that was transformative. All my time with Ross Perot, I just the little nuggets that he would say, the way that he approached things. I got to do video work with Sam Walton. I mean, some of the things that I learned from Sam Walton were incredible. Walking up to Whit Diffie and saying, "Hey, I admire you," and he said, "Hey, have you had lunch?" And getting to have lunch with Whit Diffie while I was writing a research report on the future of encryption was huge. And so those people who spent time with me, who were willing to talk to me. I mean, Sam Walton spent like a couple hours with me, just walking me through, talking to me about his ideas about business. That was huge. He didn't have to do that. He
Yeah.
clearly enjoyed doing it, and so and those people also taught me to give back to whatever community and to try to you know understand that we all started with nothing, right? Or most of us started with nothing.
Yes. Good thing that you ended on that statement about giving back. I'm jumping ahead in my questions here, but one of my questions is I know we're all pretty busy with our demanding careers and like with yourself with your speaking engagements and your nonstop travel as a chief evangelist for Lumio. But the a lot of us do find time, whether we do it in the ends of our day or we make time on our weekends, either for volunteer, charity, nonprofit work support, whether we support with our own physical, showing up to do something, or financially with donations, or if we sponsor or run one ourselves. So, is there any nonprofit organizations, volunteer charity work that you want to shine a light on or mention that I can also include the links below?
Well, you notice I'm bald now, right?
Okay.
So I gave a speech in last September at HughesCon called Risk is Danger, about the idea that risk management is antiquated, doesn't work in digital systems, and we need to switch to danger management. And I was using my nephew's experience suffering from childhood cancer, a cancer called neuroblastoma. When he was 4 years old, he got it. He was given an 80% chance of, or 98% chance of dying. because they put it to us this way: he has a 2% chance of survival. And my wife said, God doesn't believe in probabilities. And I thought, probabilities? Why are we so focused on probabilities in my business? And he's alive now. He turns 17 today as we're recording this. And he came on stage at the end of my speech and shaved my head for Wade's Army, a neuroblastoma charity that I support. And I've raised, or through what we're doing, I've raised so far $17,000 to build a special room at MD Anderson for a particular horrible treatment that they do called MIBG, where a child, they just radiate the child with so much radiation that they have to be in a lead line room. And Stephen got to be in the uh, in the trial for that at UC San Francisco. And I was actually in San Francisco during that week, and I texted my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, "Hey, I heard Steven's, at the hospital here in San Francisco, and I'm in San Francisco. Maybe I'll come visit." And they said, "No, do not come. Steven is radioactive," right? And so here you are. You're 4 years old. You can't get a hug from your mom. You can't even sit on her lap for 4 weeks afterwards. You're in a room that is lead lined, that you're looking at her and through a mirror, reflected in a mirror. It's so hyper dangerous, and so we're working to build that room. And then I also work with High Ground Foundation, which is a veterans organization. My dad was a Korean War veteran who never really came home completely. He left a lot of himself on the battlefield, and so I help with the transitioning of veterans into the private sector, help them get jobs or understand how to navigate the career thing. So I do a lot of work with veterans as well.
Well, John, I mean, again, a tremendous human being you are to, what a busy, demanding career to find time to support these and to mention them. So please give me the links to those. I'll include them in the description below. And if you're watching, just hit pause, click the link if you want to learn a bit more about these wonderful charities and nonprofits that are doing some real good, especially with children and people of all ages with that rare form of cancer, as well as supporting veterans. We do not support our veterans as much as we need to. And so thank you, John, for going above and beyond and giving of your time and money and your heart into these nonprofits. I usually, that's one of my final questions, but because you mentioned about giving back, I was like, oh my goodness, it's a perfect segue. But I
There you
want
go.
to jump we've kind of gotten real solemn and rightfully so. That is a lot of gravitas there. But I do have a section where it's kind of my speed round of questions, and it kind of gives us that breather moment. It's for levity. It's just some what I call rapid fire questions with no right or wrong answer. And it's just to kind of break the wall here to just kind of get back to fun, if you will. If you'll humor me, I'll just hit you with some questions and whatever the first answer comes to mind. Okay.
Got it.
This one divides the room, so we're going to start off with Star Wars or Star Trek.
Both. I mean, I don't see that as divisive. I mean, I would say most people who like one like the other. I don't have a, the first Star Trek movie that was ever made, that came out in 1977, I think. I was
Hmm.
17 years old. I saw it in the theater, blew me away. It's what made me want to get into film and television.
Hmm.
And I still think it's the best Star Wars movie ever made.
Hmm.
Kind of I didn't think there needed to be 800 sequels, but probably, my friend George Finney, who wrote Project Zero Trust and is a big Star Wars fan, probably would disagree with me. But no, I don't have a bias in those things. They're you know they both have some great films, and with Star Wars the TV show, and then some stinkers too. So Jar Jar Binks, we fondly remember him, don't we?
Yeah.
But I grew up with the original Star Trek series,
Hmm.
and saw it, in color TV for the first time when I was a kid, and we got our first color TV. And most people don't realize there was a time when there wasn't color TV,
Yeah.
and uh, and so yeah, no, I
Yeah.
don't have a leaning one way or another there.
Just to kind of go down the rabbit hole a bit on the Star Wars part, if the first Death Star had leveraged zero trust approaches in the building and designing the Death Star, they might have not left that exhaust hole vent.
Well, yeah, you need to read George's fan fiction. Uh, about he wrote a thing about how his daughter watching it. She said, "Dad, why did they turn off the tractor beam? If they would have kept the tractor beam going, they couldn't have blown up the Death Star." So he wrote a fanfic about that
uh,
that came out on Star Wars, whatever Star Wars Day is. What's Star Wars Day?
oh, May the 4th.
May the
May
4th,
the
yeah.
4th be with
So
you. Yeah.
it came out on May the 4th. Really fun thing about the IT guy who tried to keep the tractor beam on, but was told not to because there was a change window. And I'll let people read it, but go search for that, George
Awesome.
Finney.
So next question, cake or pie?
Well, I mean, who doesn't love both, right? I mean, I don't see again these as being divisive questions. You know, I love both cake and pie. I hate both cauliflower and broccoli. How's
Okay,
that? So,
I got that. What has been your most favorite book of all time, and what was the last book you've read?
well, my favorite book, of course, is the Bible, right? I mean, it inspires me.
Hmm.
I read it every day, or try to. So it is my soul.
Hmm.
The last book I read, though, was I'm just looking at it here, so I get the name right. Empire of the Summer Moon. It's the story of Quanah Parker, the Comanche chief, and because I live right here, smack where Quanah Parker, when the Comanches ruled uh, the southeast, it was kind of here in the Dallas near the Dallas area, and so historically it makes a lot of sense, and Quanah Parker was a very interesting historical figure. And the history it ties into the history of the Texas Rangers and the history of Texas and the history of the West, and I like history. So that was the last book I read and highly recommended. I saw the writer on Joe Rogan and put that down as one of the things in my list, and it just finally came up.
Okay, awesome. Is there any other projects you have upcoming, maybe books or papers you're working on that you can give us a little teaser that's coming down the road in, let's say, the next 6 months, 6 to 12 months?
Well, there's going to be always a lot of blogs and things like that. I go to Bletchley Park to give a speech this in 2 weeks. We're shooting a video there. We shot a video. Chase Cunningham and I shot a video um, at in San Francisco during RSA on the in San Francisco Bay at the submarine there, talking about how a submarine is segmented and how you can learn a lot from the way submarines are segmented and the way you build zero trust environments. Because even if one compartment floods, the whole thing won't go down. So that video will be coming out. As far as a book, I've tried to write a book. Books are really hard. It takes a lot of time, and it's hard to it was hard for me to build zero trust and try to write a book at the same time. So I've kind of left that to other people.
Hmm.
George Finney, his two books on zero trust, Project Zero Trust and Rise of the Machines, a zero trust story about AI and zero trust. That all started on my living room couch. And so
Wow.
I got to be involved in that and write the forward to both of those books. And then, I work. Chase Cunningham is one of my good friends, and I got to read his book Gabriel, and the other one, his the update, uh, the part two, and I'm waiting for part three to come out. I'm giving him a hard time. You stopped that at the wrong time, dude. I wanted more, so that'll be coming out, and he writes some cool stuff and always controversial, and a great friend. So, but for me, there's just so much stuff that out there that you can consume, and it's overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, John, I want to thank you so much for your giving of your time for this podcast recording. Again, I know you're super busy, and then with your travels, I can imagine you're in a constant state of varying degrees of jet lag. But thank you for sharing some knowledge, some insights, and just sharing us some stories, the story of how you got into your career. Because again, we're the industry, every industry in the world is better off because of you. And so, thank you for your contributions
Thank
and
you.
the work that you're continuing to do, and the words that you keep spreading to educate us all. With that, I always love to give my guests the last word. So whatever you like to say, talk about, the floor is yours, sir.
Um, I guess I would say, that 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 doing good cybersecurity is possible. We just have to have the will to do it. And I think a lot of people don't have the will to do it. And so, if you're a leader, incentivize your people to do the right thing. And if you're, an individual practitioner, or you're just a cybersecurity engineer, which is not just, because I did that for a long time, just keep fighting, keep grinding. You can grind, and that's what I did in Zero Trust. Well, if I listened to other people, it would have never come about, because so many people said no, that's a dumb idea. And don't listen to what other people say. Listen to your that internal voice that is giving you better advice, because a lot of people don't want you to succeed, and they don't want things to get better, and there's a lot of weird reasons for that. But we can make a difference, and you can feel good about your career if you're in cybersecurity.
Wow, wonderful. Great words of wisdom. Well, John, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.